All right, there are 20 problems on this review that you worked on. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday, wasn't it? Friday. It was Friday that you worked on this. There's 20 questions on the review. Guess how many questions are on the test? 20, right. And since you get to use a calculator on this, I don't know, there's not very many problems that are going to be that difficult. The only hard part, and this is the part I want you to pay close attention to today, is how to type the answers in on the computer. That's the important part, because the answers I think you're going to think are easy to get. How do you type them into the computer? That's where we got to be careful. Number one, solve for x using square roots. So I'm even telling you how to do it. What does that mean? How do I do that? What do I get rid of? 225, right. Add 225 to both sides. 0 plus 225 is 225. Now, square roots, what does that mean? That means on your calculator, type in the square root of 225. And you get 15. Now, here's the hard part. What's the answer? Yeah, is the answer 15? Kinda and kinda not. What is the answer? It's plus or minus 15. Now, this is the important part. The calculator is only going to tell you the plus. You got to be smart enough to remember you got to have the minus also. So it's plus or minus 15. Now it says separate your answer using commas. For example, if the answers are 2 and 4, right? 2, 4. So if this was the test tomorrow, you got to be able to let the computer know that you know the answer. So here's how you do that. You just write 15, negative 15. That's how you type it into the computer. You don't have a plus or minus button on the computer, so you got to write it like this. Positive 15, negative 15. Would it be okay to turn that around and put negative 15, positive 15? Totally okay. Yep. So number 2, same directions. What do I got to do? Subtract 7. Good. That gives you x squared equals 49. When I take the square root of 49 on my calculator, it's only going to give me one of the answers. So it's 7 or, and again, when you type it in on the calculator, you're going to make it look like that. Or I'm sorry, on the computer. When you write it into the computer, you're going to put 7, negative 7. That's all you got to do. You don't want to put x equals 7. You don't type in, I think the answer is 7. Just put 7, negative 7. All right, number 3, solve for x using the zero product property. Again, this is an example of an easy question, but you got to be careful how you write the answer. It says write your answer as integers or as proper or improper fractions in simplest form. Separate your answers using commas, just like you did for problems 1 and 2. So what does the zero product property mean? That means something times something equals 0. What has to be true about at least one of those somethings? Has to be 0. So we've done this a whole bunch. Tell me what I would plug in for that x that causes this factor to be 0. Negative 2. And what could I plug in for that x? 7/3. Do you remember the shortcut that it's always the opposite of this number divided by this number? That's what you got to do. It's 7/3. Now, do not do this. Don't type in 7/3 and get 2.3 repeating. Because in the problem, it says they want your answer as integers or improper fractions in simplest form. Don't give a decimal. So don't turn 7/3 into 2.3. It's just 7/3. So on the computer, you're going to type in 7/3, negative 2. Just like that. And again, totally okay to switch those around and put the negative 2 first and the 7/3 second. Okay, so again, the problems themselves, I don't think are going to be all that tough for you tomorrow on the test. Making sure you type it in correctly, that's the important part. Number 4. Are the directions the same for number 4 as they were for number 3? They are. So let's do this the easy way. What number could you plug in right there? 1. What number can you plug in right there? Right, it's the opposite of this number divided by that number. It is 4/9. Now, what would happen if you forget that tomorrow on the test? Could you just set 9x minus 4 equals 0 and then solve it like you did first semester? Do you still get the same answer? You do, but you don't have to do all this work if you don't want to, as long as you remember it's always the opposite of this number divided by that number. But if you forget tomorrow on the test, it's totally okay just to solve it like that. Again, 1, 4/9 is how I would type that in. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay. Next, rewrite each expression factoring out the greatest common factor. What's the biggest number that goes into 12 and 18? 6. Does that mean that 6 is the answer? No. Now, that's again where these problems aren't difficult, but how you write the answer is important. It doesn't say what is the greatest common factor. It says rewrite the expression factoring out the greatest common factor. After you factor out the greatest common factor, don't forget to write down what's left over. Remember that? So 6 times what is 12x? 2x, good. And then you got minus 6 times what is 18? And that's how you type it in. Just the way that looks. Just type in 6 parenthesis 2x minus 3 parenthesis. Just exactly like that. What about number 6? Same exact directions. What makes it look a little tougher though? The exponents, right? So what's the biggest number that goes into 8 and 12? 4. What is the biggest number of x's that I can factor out? Oh, can I take 2 of them? Why can I not take out 2 of them? Because this one only has how many? 1. Good. So I can only take out 1. So I take out a 4 and an x. Can I take out any y's? No. How come? This one doesn't have any y's. Exactly. So there you go. That's the greatest common factor. Now you just got to write down what's left over. 4x times what is this? 2xy. Good. Because 4 times 2 is 8. X times x is x squared. And while there's nothing, we didn't take the y out, so it's still there. Minus 4 times 3 is 12. Should I put another x there? How come? Yeah, you already took, there was 1 x there and I took it out, so there's nothing left. So that's it. Okay. All right, let's see. Number 7, factor. Write your answer as 2 factors in parentheses. For example, x minus 1, x minus 3. So this is not the answer, but this is what your answer is going to look like. So here's how you do these problems. These are the ones where this is the multiply number and this is the add number. Can you think of 2 numbers that multiply to 8? Why not 4 and 2? Yeah, you got to get them to add up to -7, and 4 and 2 don't, there's no way you could combine 4 and 2 and get them to add up to 7. But 8 and 1 you could, as long as which one's negative. In order to get them to add to -7, you'd have to be -8 and +1, right? So that's the answer. Because look, my answer looks kind of like this. Would it be okay to put the x plus 1 first and the x minus 8 second? Yes, that's totally okay. All right. Same directions now for number 8. Give me 2 numbers that multiply to 15. 5 and 3. Can you get -8 from 5 and 3? Yeah, as long as they're both negative, right? So what do you got here? X minus 5, x minus 3. Do those 2 numbers multiply to give you positive 15? They do. And so that's good. So make sure you not only look at the problem, but read how they want you to write the answer down. Because here you can see we're going to write the answer so it looks like this. Now, number 9, it says almost the same thing. The problem looks almost the same, but what's different? Equals 0. Does it say to factor? Well, last time it said factor. This time it says solve by factor. A little bit different, all right? Slade notices that this says equals 0 here. So we're going to use the same method, but we're going to do it slightly differently. Just slightly differently. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to start out the same way. Give me 2 numbers that multiply to 54. 9 and 6. Can you get a -3 from 9 and 6 when you add them together? Which one has to be negative? To give you -3, have to be -9. It has to be -9 and +6. Do those 2 numbers multiply to -54? They do. And do they add to -3? They do. Now, here's the important part. This isn't the answer. We want to, yeah, now we're going to kind of combine the last two sets of problems. Now we're going to use the zero product property to get the answers. Notice it says write your answers separated by a comma, for example, 7, 9. That means we want these two answers. What number can you plug in there? 9. And what number can you plug in there? And those are the two answers. That's what you would type in for your answer on the test. Okay? So it takes just one little step because it said solve by factoring. Now, number 10, it says the same thing, right? Solve by factoring. So first you want to factor. Give me two numbers that multiply to 6. 6 and 1 or 2 times 3. Now, can you get a 5 from 6 and 1? You can, but one of them would have to be negative, right? And if one of them was negative, would they multiply to positive 6? No. And that's why 2 and 3 are the better choice. Good. X plus 2, X plus 3. But don't leave it as 2 and 3. What could you plug in there to cause this factor to be 0? Negative 2. And what about there? Negative 3. Again, the problems I don't think are going to be all that difficult for you. It's just making sure you know how to write the answer down. That's the tough part. Number 11, another one that's super easy as long as you remember how to do it. So let's write this down. Complete the square. Fill in the number that makes the polynomial a perfect square quadratic. What number would I put right there? How do you figure it out? If you can't remember, write this down. You want to take half and then square it. So first take half and then square it. So on your calculator, you want to take half of 24. So take 24 divided by 2 and then square it. 144. Was that somebody at the door? Just my imagination. Anyway, 144. Take half and square it. Easy. Number 12. Tell me why a lot of people are going to get number 12 wrong. It's just as easy as the other one. Because of the negative. What's half of negative 8? Negative 4. Now, if I type in negative 4 squared on my calculator, what just happened? It's supposed to be a positive 16, isn't it? Right? Because what did I do wrong? How did I type that in wrong? Got to put it in parentheses. So positive 4 or negative 4 squared should be positive 16. Now, did I kind of give you a hint when I put a plus right there? Right? So you know it's going to be plus. Moving on. Let's see if we can find a difficult problem here somewhere. Solve using the quadratic formula. Do you have to memorize the quadratic formula? No, there it is. It's right there on the test. You don't have to memorize it. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth, just like on the IXL. Separate your answers with a comma, just like we did on the other problems. So here we go. Here's the only difficult part of this. A equals what? 1. B is 7, and C is 4. Should we use Ms. Hutchinson's method of typing all this in on the calculator in one step so we don't have to write anything down? I think that's a good idea. So let's do that. Try it now if you didn't do it before. What numbers do you got to hit on your calculator? Alpha, y equals, enter. That will put that little blinky fraction up there. And that fraction is going to make it really easy for us to type all this in. So here I go. Negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. And I use the down arrow to get down to the bottom, and 2 times a, since a is 1, 2 times 1 is 2. So type all that in just the way it looks, and then be careful to round to the nearest hundredth, which is how many decimal places? 2. So what's the answer? Is it 0.62 or 0.63? negative 0.63. Excellent. And you know there's not just one answer, there's two. So how do I find the other answer? Yeah, change this plus. I know it's really hard to see that, but change that plus to a minus. Hit second enter, so you don't got to type it all in again. And then just keep hitting the back arrow key until the cursor goes over that plus. Change that plus to a minus. During first period, when I was showing them how to do this, somebody got an error message when they tried this, because instead of minus, instead of using this key, they use the negative key, and that will make it an error. So don't do that. So in other words, you just change that to a minus. What's the answer? Negative 6 point what? Negative 6.37. Remember, the hundredths place is 2 places. You know how IXL is real picky about rounding? So is the computer tomorrow when you take the test. So be real careful about how you round. Okay. Any questions on that? That is the second most difficult problem on the test. We're getting to it. Let's try this one, number 14. What's that? That's A. What's that? It's B. What's that? And when you type that in, minus really means like negative, right? So let's try this one. Here we go. Let's see, -2. Oops, what did I forget to do first? Alpha y equals enter. I got to make the fraction first. So -2 plus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times A times C. Notice I put that in as a -6 and not a -6. Divided by how much? 2? Why 10? Good. 2 times 5 is 10. There you go. So my first answer is 0.91. And my other answer, just like we did before, we're just going to backspace and type in a negative over top of that plus. Did you get negative 1.31? Try it. See if, because sometimes I mess up. Make sure I did that right. Negative 1.31. Okay. Easy. Have we done any problems yet? You're going to get wrong tomorrow. I don't think so. I think this is going to, I think there's going to be a lot of 100% on the test. All right, let's see. These are some older problems. What do you think about this one? Monomial, binomial, or trinomial? How come? There's no plus or minus. What if I just gave you this thing here? What would you say? Trinomial, 1, 2, 3, right? What about that one? Binomial, 1, 2. Okay. All right, number 16. This is the problem more people are going to get wrong than any other problem. This one right here. More people are going to get this one wrong. Of course you can use the bathroom. Why are more people going to get this one wrong than any other problem? Do you have to just change this sign or change all the signs over here? All of them. Yep. That's it. Now, is it a difficult problem? No, it's not a difficult problem, but more people are going to get it wrong. Then you change it to plus, change that to a minus, change that to a minus. Now, do you just combine like terms? What is that and that? -1 x squared. Now, do you have to put the 1 in front of it? No, you don't. Just leave it like that. What about that and that? Plus 2x. Is that the final answer? What's the only thing I'm missing? The -8. Is that the final answer? Yes, that's the final answer. More people are going to get that wrong than any other problem because they're just going to forget to move or to distribute the negative to both parts. Don't let that be you. Adding, is adding easier? It really is, because now you don't have to do any of that. You just combine like terms. What's that and that? 7x squared. What's that and that? 6x. And is that all done? Just like before, we got to put that -8 on there. Okay. Number 18, find the product. Product means what? Multiply. Product means multiply. So this really means this. x minus 5 times x minus 5. And how do you get the answer to this kind of a problem? Multiply. What method do you like? The file method or the box method? Do they both work? Either one of them works. Let's do the file method on this one. What's x times x? X squared. What is negative 5x and negative 5x when you add them together? Negative 10x. Good. Negative 5 and negative 5 is negative 10. And then finally, what's negative 5 times negative 5? There you go. And that's the answer. That's what you would type in, just like that. And let's see, number 19, find f of negative 6. Can I use my calculator for this? I sure hope so. Tell me how I should be careful typing this in. Parentheses, yes. This is a negative we're plugging in for x. And if I don't use parentheses, I run the risk of getting it wrong. But basically, I'm just taking that negative 6 and putting it in for x there and there. Just make sure you put it in parentheses. What's the answer, by the way? 73. There you go. That's the answer. Let your calculator do all that hard work for you. Do not stress yourself out by doing a whole lot of work. This is not going to be a difficult test if you get to use a calculator. The only hard part of the test is figuring out how to write the answers in. Let's see, a ball is thrown upward from an initial height of 7. What's that? That's h sub o. 72 feet per second. What's that? That's v sub o. How high is the ball after 1.9 seconds? What's that? That's time. So I know h sub o, v sub o, and time. Do I know everything I need? Yeah. Here we go. And then it says round to the hundredth. So I'm just going to type in negative 16 times what? 1.9 squared plus 72 times 1.9 plus 7. And round it off to the hundredth. What's the good news on this one? It's already rounded to the nearest hundredth. The nearest hundredth is 2 decimal places, and there it is. It's already rounded to the hundredth. So that actually made that one pretty easy. Okay. All right. Any questions on any of those?